In this video, we will talk about how to load an approach in the Garmin 430 and Garmin 530 GPS. November 8-7 Charlie Whiskey has a Garmin 430, and November 8-4 Juliet Sierra has a Garmin 530. The Garmin 530 has a bigger screen than the 430, however, the procedure for loading an approach will be the same in either plane. First, let's talk about some basic instrument procedures that you will need to follow as you are setting up for the approach. You will be under the hood as you are setting up for the approach, and you will be given vectors or course guidance by either ATC, your instructor, or the DPE. You must follow the course guidance they are giving you as you are setting up for the approach until they give you a new clearance. To set up the approach in the Garmin 430 and 530, the easiest way will be to hit Procedure, the Enter button to select approach. Then you can select the airport. Here we already have Glendale selected. However, if you needed to select a different airport, you can use this knob on the bottom right-hand corner of the GPS unit to change the airport. You would use the little knob to select something different from the highlighted field, and you would use the big knob to cycle between fields. But for the purposes of this demonstration, we will select an approach at Glendale. So I will select the airport and use the knobs to select the airport identifier, Kilo Golf Echo Uniform. Again, I'm using the big knob to cycle between fields and the little knob to select the letters. Once I have selected my airport, I will hit Enter. Next, it will allow me to select the approach that I want to do that's listed at that airport. If we were going to shoot the RNAV1, I would just hit Enter. If we needed to select the RNAV19, I could use the little knob again to select the approach that I wanted, and I would hit Enter. And then we will select where we want the approach to begin. I always recommend starting it at an initial approach fix. For the RNAV19, the only initial approach fix is Avent. And then we can activate the approach. Now again, from here, we are still maintaining the course guidance that the instructor, the DPE, or ATC has given us. From here, there are 4 ways we can activate this approach and begin flying it. Let's talk about the 2 ways we are most likely to begin this approach. First way is being cleared direct to a certain fix on the approach. A common fix on this approach to be given direct to is BAPA. So you would use this knob, back up. So when you come into flight plan, you will press in on this bottom right knob. You will use the big knob to scroll down to BAPA. If you were given direct BAPA, you would hit the direct to button, enter, and you are now receiving course guidance direct to BAPA. The second most common way you would be given to activate this approach would be if you were given vectors outside a certain fix on the approach. If that is what you were given, you will go into your flight plan. You will again press in on the knob to get your cursor. Use the big knob to highlight the specific fix you are being vectored outside of. You would press Menu. The first option is Activate Leg, which is what we would select, and then Activate. What that does is it allows the instructor, the DPE or ATC to give you vectors on course outside of a specific fix. The third way you can activate the approach, if you are given vectors outside of the final approach fix, and your clearance would be expect vectors outside of final or expect vectors outside of the name of the final approach fix, you could go to Procedure and activate vectors to final. And that will allow ATC, the instructor, or the DPE to give you vectors on course outside the final approach fix. And then the last way to activate the approach, and by far the most uncommon way, I can't really think of a situation where we would use this, would be just to go to procedure, and it's not highlighted, but activate approach. One thing to be careful about is if you have used any of those other 3 methods that we just talked about to activate the approach, you do not want to come back in here and select activate approach at some point. The reason being is it will change the guidance you have input for yourself, and it will just give you a direct track to the initial approach fix that you loaded the approach from. And if you have already activated the approach using one of those other 3 methods that we talked about, it will delete that guidance and you will be off course. And that is your procedures for how to activate an approach in the Garmin 430 or Garmin 530 GPS units.